Raymond, George Kittle and Travis Kelce have united to start a tight end university. And while many tight ends have been invited to this university, not all of them were. Several high-profile tight ends, high-profile in quotations, tight ends, were not allowed to attend the university. And it made me think, Raymond, it made me think back to when we started the GoldCast University as our way of educating other podcasts on how to be even remotely as badass as us. We basically said, we will give you 100%, but you'll only be able to absorb about 1%. That'll be $1,000 for the 3 days. Thank you. You're welcome. Now, Raymond, it made me think about the fact that we did say no to several of our rival podcasts. Raymond, can you remember some of the biggest high-profile podcasts that we did not allow to the GoldCast University?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure we denied access to the Tomahawk Chop cast, as well as the Who Dat cast. Who were there was a couple other ones. Who were those other two?
The Washington Professional Football podcast, and then of course, we had to deny the Louis B is the only Rams fan in the world cast. Shout outs to Louis. You can be on our show. We ain't helping your pod.
Yeah.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! Raymond, we're back. We're back. And not only are we back, but our boy George Kittle and his longtime friend, rival, Travis Kelce are back. And they have started a tight end university. Apparently there was over 40 tight ends in attendance. And this is supposed to be a weekend-long get-together where they talk about technique, video, and just overall improving the level of play for these players. And it's a pretty hilarious video. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go online and watch it, GoldCast Empire. It's pretty funny. They're going through the intro. Greg Olsen is introducing everybody. There's a moment of George Kittle doing the same thing. And Travis Kelce cannot stop screaming in the background, "Let's go! Let's effing go! Let's go!" And he's just so hyped. And I thought it was a great video. It was nice to see the camaraderie amongst the players, that even though there's obviously intense physical rivalries on the field, that in the offseason they can get together. I mean, I'm sure this probably cost a pretty penny to be a part of if you're, I doubt it was for free, something like this. I'm sure this is a for-profit university that's being held on, obviously, by George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Greg Olsen. But in general, I think seeing them attempt to improve the overall play, which they said also helps the overall pay of this position in the NFL, is a good thing for NFL. Raymond, what are your reactions to Travis Kelce very enthusiastic start to their tight end university?
I think Kelce was clearly channeling his inner George Kittle, because George Kittle's normally the one that is galvanized by, large social settings like that, especially revolving around his favorite sport, obviously. And he does that on the sidelines all season long for the Niners. So to see Kelce kind of, emulating George Kittle, and Kelce's got a lot of enthusiasm too. I've seen mic'd up games of him as well, and he's definitely got a little bit of a George in him. But there's only one George, and Kelce was definitely doing his best George Kittle impression, and it was all in good fun, and I think it's great. I mean, those players getting better makes the NFL better, and actually it helps fantasy, because right now, fantasy, at least last season, there was like only 2 tight ends that were doing any damage most of the season, and everything else was like roll of the dice. And you were wishing that tight end was more of a flex spot so you could swap somebody more productive in that position if you didn't have Travis Kelce and, a couple other guys. Even Mark Andrews was down, and George Kittle was actually injured for part of the season. So I think it's nice that they have this thing. I'm curious how much he charges those players to even get into that special club. And he denied Tim Tebow to get in there because he's like, "Hey, man, you're a great athlete, but this is your first time doing this. And it's like, I can't say yes to you if I'm telling other people who have been a tight end forever, no, which he said in an interview. So just interesting little take there on the cap. And it's fine. It's like basically like, Tim Tebow's got to earn it. And I agree. We haven't seen Tebow play a snap of tight end in real live action. So we'll have to see how that pans out, especially given his age. But a cool thing altogether.
It was a cool thing altogether. And so, wait, okay, so you're telling me that not everybody was simply allowed to go to the tight end university.
My impression is that it's invitation. Part of it is invitation, and so George Kittle has to turn players down. He doesn't invite like all like second string, third string tight ends from all 32 NFL teams. Because remember, he said he had 40 something tight ends there, right? Like 49 or something to that degree, which means he's probably got first string from most of the teams and a very small contingent of second string guys
or like vets or something,
or things like that. Who knows? Greg Olson's old, but he's still playing. So I think it's a pretty exclusive club. So he's turning down third stringers that have been tight ends their whole life, and also turned down the newest tight end to the NFL, which is Tim Tebow. And so that was interesting, and that was earlier in the week. Not necessarily the most glamorous news, but it obviously ties into this story a little bit.
Yeah, the snubbing of Tim Tebow is probably the best part of this entire story, for sure. Definitely. That kind of cracks me up, to be perfectly honest. All right, Raymond, let's move on. Warriors news. It's happened. The draft lottery has occurred. And so now we are in the position we were hoping. So for those of you that get a little confused, because it can be a little confusing, we had the Minnesota Timberwolves pick. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves pick, here's the thing. It was top 3 protected, which meant that if they got 1 through 3, we would not get their pick this year, but we would get whatever they got next year. If it fell outside of the top 3, we would get it this year. So obviously the hope was that the Golden State Warriors that the Minnesota Timberwolves would draw in the draft lottery, that they would draw the 4th pick, maybe the 5th pick, somewhere right there in the top 5. That's what we were hoping for. We got kind of close. We got the 7th pick, which still falls outside the top 5, but arguably, depending on who you talk to, and we'll talk to Candlestick Will in the next week or so about this specifically, depending on who you talk to, there are plenty of great players that are within those first 7 to 10 spots, right, that are worthy. Now, the number 7 spot, Raymond, for us historically has been pretty good. To name 3 players for you: Chris Mullin back in the 80s, Steph Curry behind me here when he got drafted, and then Harrison Barnes. So historically, we've had some luck at the 7th pick of the draft, but you're not quite as convinced. So let me know, why are you not as convinced that this pick in the draft is not going to be as lucrative this year as it has been in prior years?
Well, I think, and Candlestick will most likely agree with me, the fact that, the players that you just named off, that was during an era when we had Jerry West as a very intimate consultant with the team.
Curry and Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, we even tried to get rid of Clay for Kevin Love, and Jerry West said, no, what the hell are you thinking? So, and ever since Jerry West left, everywhere Jerry West goes to help teams, they end up in the postseason, if not, a champion. And he's doing it again this season. And Jerry West, I think, ever since he left, and Bob Myers has been left to kind of, work with his own staff without a Jerry West mind chirping in his ear, has not done as well. We've drafted or acquired average to below average role players. That is my opinion on the way that he has handled this. I mean, obviously we have Wiseman and Toscano that I think have potential going into this year. And I thought we did a little bit better this year getting those role players, but they just, they weren't able to gel fast enough to take us into a deeper playoff run. But we still, I think, surpassed expectations. So that was a positive that I'll credit to him. Whether he can acquire an all-star with the return of Klay Thompson next season remains to be seen. But I just kind of have my doubts on Bob Myers because he's just not Jerry West, not even close. And so I think that, the previous success, a lot of that is predicated on the influence of Jerry West, which we don't have anymore. And I just haven't been able to see that duplicate, not even a little bit.
I agree. It's kind of like when you're looking at, let's say we're looking at the end of the Giants' tenure, right? We're looking right around after the dynasty, 2016, 2017, 2018. And you just kind of feel like the Giants are just holding on to a little bit of their past glory, and they're not quite up to date with where everything is. And then you look at Farhan takes over the team, and it just completely revitalizes them, and they're all the way back in contention this year. And the difference was instantly recognizable within the very first year that we had someone on our hands that really had a strong grasp of what was going on across the league, players at all levels in all spots, and knew exactly who to grab from where and to put them in places that would support and make this team instantly better. I mean, instantly better. We were the hottest team in July in that very first year. And then we're super scrappy last year, and now look at where we are. So I agree with you that it does feel like ever since Jerry West has left, that we have been kind of floating around. There isn't a confidence there. There isn't a pickup that you're going, wow, oh yeah, him, absolutely. It's just not quite what it has been. There's a shine and a polish to our free agency pickups, our trade pickups, our draft pickups that has not been there. And we're only a couple years removed, and so let's give it some time. But in general, I feel like Bob Myers is kind of grasping at straws or looking for all-stars, and that's where a lot of teams are, and that's a real tough position to be in.
It is. Wiseman's been the most exciting thing, and unfortunately his rookie campaign got cut short due to injury. But I'm glad you mentioned the Giants because that's a perfect analogy. Brian Saban took a step back, Bobby Evans took over, and the team was just not able to keep pace with their previous dynasty. They tried to bring in some big names into the club. They brought in, what's his name, the three-time All-Star closer. He was horrible and just was never comfortable there. That's kind of the biggest one that sticks out to me because that was one of our last big acquisitions that I was excited about, but it just didn't work out. And Bobby Evans just was not able to duplicate what Brian Saban had done. And that's why we let him go, or we reassigned him in 2018. And then Farhan came in, and we know that was going to be a multi-year process before we were going to get back to where we are now, which is, obviously going to segue into our next story as well. But that has paid dividends. When you get a proven mind in there, you can see how things can turn around when you have someone in there that knowing how to kind of organize and coordinate the pieces accordingly. And so I'm still waiting for Bob Myers to do that. It's been a couple years and we have made progress. So it's not like we're still the last in the league. We are making progress, so I'm curious to see how next season will work out and who our draft picks will be that we can actually add to someone like Wiseman and some of the younger guys and build some depth there and see if that can gel into the future of this team, because obviously Klay is never going to be the same with his injury, and Curry's is in his 30s, and he's only got so many years left in his tank. And he's dealt with injuries, every year he seems to deal with some type of injury, sometimes for longer stints, sometimes for shorter stints. But either way, he's not the most durable player and hasn't been for most of his career. And that's something that we have to think about going forward because, heaven forbid that something knocks him out because of injury. I'd rather see him go out into the sunset like a true champ. But we have to start preparing for that, and hopefully Wiseman's the first sign of that. So we'll just have to see how the rest of the dominoes fall.
We will, and I think Wiseman, still has a lot to learn, and looked, had a strong start, but then quickly, his lack of college experience, his lack of pro experience was catching up to him, and unfortunately he got hurt, which it would have been nice to see him finish the full season, hopefully see how his maturation goes, but we'll have to wait till this coming season.
He seems eager to grow, which is good. He seems to have a, kind of a above average attitude about wanting to progress and become a better player.
I agree with that. Another one great example of this, I think, would be the difference between Trent Baalke and John Lynch. It's another great example of two GMs that if you just look at Trent Baalke's era versus what John Lynch has done, and I think there just isn't even a comparison. And of course, a lot of that you have to also credit the man behind the curtain there, our Jerry West inside that front office, which is of course Adam Peters, and the phenomenal work he's done. It's impossible.
And I know there's some people that push back on that because Trent Baalke obviously had 3 straight NFC Championship appearances, but you got to remember the teams that existed for that Niner era, a lot of that was credited to Scott McCloughan's job as the GM in bringing those players in. It's just that we couldn't get a coach to bring them together until Harbaugh. And so Trent Baalke kind of got credit that he didn't really deserve. He deserved contributing credit before he got promoted to GM, but a lot of that was Scott McCloughan.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's hope we're not in the same situation, but right now I'd say the GoldCast, Raymond and I are nervous that we might be in a little bit of that same situation right now with the Golden State Warriors. So we will wait and see what happens with this 7th round draft pick, if anything at all. Do we trade it away? Do we trade the 7th round draft pick and Wiseman some sort of package deal for another star? I don't think we can get a superstar, but another star. We will have to wait and see. But moving on, Raymond, our boys, the most exciting guys in baseball. We have this mini gauntlet that we've been talking about, sharing with the GoldCast Empire. We were talking about this little stretch here, and this little stretch basically involves the Angels, who we just wrapped up. We're going to talk a little bit about them. The A's coming up this weekend, and then, of course, the Dodgers, who, as of right now, we're recording this on June 24th at 10:52 p.m., just have now lost their 4th game in a row, a complete shutout to the Cubs, a team that we kicked their butt the last time we played them, another one of the best teams in the National League. And now the Dodgers are on a 4-game skid and have just been shut out by the Cubs after getting swept by the Padres, which is a very important team that you don't want to get swept to because it's a very tight race between us, the Dodgers, and the Padres in the NL West. But Raymond, what a wild game Game 2 was against the Angels. We had Ohtani, that's the phenom, the hitting and pitching phenom. We haven't seen something like this since Babe Ruth. He was going up against our boy, Kevin Gausman. It did not disappoint. It was the pitcher's duel we expected, but it's what happened in extra innings that I was the most impressed by. Raymond, we go all the way to the 13th inning, tied 2-2, and then the Giants just go ham. They drop 7 runs on the Angels. Just we didn't even rip their heart out of their chest. We ripped their soul right out of their chest for a nice little 2-game sweep to send them packing. How pumped were you to see what an incredible finish the Giants had in this game?
Well, considering that the Giants are the best team in baseball, they did exactly what the best team in baseball should do in a scenario like that, which is take full advantage of a team that just had a meltdown and that has been 500 and up to this point below 500 now for the duration of this season. I mean, they walked in the first run, then they errored the next run in. Then, to make matters worse, they said, all right, well, if you're going to gift us a couple of runs there from an error and a walk, then we're going to go ahead and make sure that there is no return from these mistakes, and then just bust it out with a 3-run bomb by Tauchman to cap it off with a very definitive dagger to win 9-2, which was just excellent. I mean,
9-3. They got one run.
9-3.
They got one run in 13th.
That's right. I mean, this is a team that was 500, which I thought was going to be, the Phillies were also a 500 team that they also beat up on as well. So they've had back-to-back 500 teams. Granted, right at 500, a team that wins as much as they lose. But 500 teams are 500 teams. Those are teams that are like teetering on the edge of breaking out and perhaps getting, a streak to put them in a more favorable position in their division. And, baseball's streaky, so that can happen to any team in all the majors. So the fact that they knocked out 2 of them in a row is terrific. And that sets them up for a huge series coming up this weekend. The A's are no longer the best in the West. They seceded. They are now in second place to the Houston Astros, who are a game above them. And they are still the second best team in the entire American League. So it's nothing to sneeze at. This is going to be a huge series. Coming off this big extra innings win against the Angels. And the Giants had not done well in extra innings this season so far. So it was nice to see them pick up that big win because I thought the Angels were putting up a good fight and then just had a meltdown. The Giants just swarmed all over them and got the win, which they'll need because they, need the rest today because they've dealt with a lot of injuries. They've had the second most injuries in all the majors, yet are somehow still the best team in baseball. That is a unique combination to be in because we know if the Niners were number one in football, having the most, it just does not translate the same way in baseball as it does in football. But I think a lot of that is credited to the amazing talented depth that the Giants have. Everyone who comes in to the lineup when someone goes down has been able to pick up right where they left off and keep us just chugging along. So big credit to the depth there and really looking forward to the A's series.
I'll say this, too, about that depth. When Farhan took over the Giants, we had the worst farm system in the league. And then by last year, middle of last year, we were ranked 14th. This year, we're now in the top 5. So that just shows you the difference there and how quickly and how fast he turned around. And it really comes down to depth in that farm league. And, we talked about this on that last episode. Brandon Belt goes down with a knee injury, MRI to follow soon. Not sure how long he's going to be out, but Lamont Wade Jr., a lot of people were upset that he got called down to the minors. If Belt's out for a significant period of time, I think it's a pretty good chance you're going to see Wade Jr. come up, and it's going to be his opportunity to shine.
I mean, there's a chance. I think right now the suggestion is that Wilmer Flores will take over at first. We know that Dubon is also capable. Dubon's played everywhere this year. He's played third, he's played short, he's played second, he's played outfield. I'm sure he can play first. Wilmer Flores, I think, is probably the top of the list, though, for first base right now. So I'm not sure if Wade will get called back just yet. I think if his injury ends up being significant, Farhan is hoping that it's going to be a short-term injury, but he thinks he's going to go on the IL no matter what. But if it's long-term, then I think you definitely make the move and just get Wade back in there right now because he was so hot coming off from the option from AAA that I think, he deserves another shot. And I know Farhan is going to give it to him, but again, it's circumstantial. So, someone has to go down in order for him to get a shot, which is unfortunate, but I think it'll benefit no matter what when he returns. As far as the series against the A's goes, though, it's pretty interesting that we're going to have Sean Manaea, the A's big ace, going up against our ace, although an aged ace, but still an ace no matter what, and still an ace regardless this year, and Johnny Cueto. I think Sean Manaea has pitched well against the Giants, and of course Johnny Cueto has also pitched well against the A's. Even though he has 2 no decisions out of his 3 appearances, he has 1 win and a 1.04 ERA against the A's. And I think only Matt Olson is one of the few players that's had success against Cueto, so I really don't know if that's going to make a difference. Either way, I think it's going to be a pitching matchup tomorrow, which I will be in person live to witness. And then Saturday, it'll be Frankie Montas going up against Alex Wood. I think Alex Wood has the edge there. 6-3, 4.09 ERA against a 7-7, 4.79 ERA. So it's a good matchup, but I think that the Giants are ready to answer and break the streak because the A's have actually not lost a series against us since 2015. So the Giants are in a much better position to do that. And then Sunday is going to get capped off with Cole Irvin going up against Sammy Long, our new boy. So I have a lot of faith in him to deliver the goods for a potential sweep opportunity in Sunday. I think the Giants can definitely sweep the A's, but I wouldn't take this team lightly. This is an above average, second best team in the AL, a top 5 team in all of Major League Baseball. So this is a big test for the Giants. I don't necessarily think the A's are going to go down as easily as some of these other teams. So look out for what I think is going to be a pretty amazing series.
It is. I am so hyped. It only goes up. So Angels was a great first test. Now we got the A's a little bit higher. and then we're going to have the Dodgers. And based on how the Dodgers are doing, I expect to see a very, very tough outing from them to try and regain some ground in the NL West. But of course, we're going to talk about that after this A's series. Raymond, you have a blast out there. If you see our boy, Raymond Solis first, baby, make sure you say hi to him. Shout outs to the GoldCast Empire. And we'll be back next week. And before we leave, what are your thoughts on the Warriors' 7th pick of the draft? Let us know. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast and let us know what you think. Go then to the comment section and tell us, what do you think about the 7th pick? Can Bob Myers do it? Can this pick help us get back in contention? Let us know. youtube.com/thegoldcast. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III. And with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis first, baby. Look for me in the bleacher section.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.